So Charles Coulter and I are here with, we're in Boise with Gary Stevens and Linda Cross, and we're just so happy to have you guys to visit with and talk about some of these famous dogs of the past that you personally owned and bred and campaigned. And so we're not going to be too formal here. It's just going to be a conversation, and there's no script. We're just going to talk about dogs. And we already had a little bit of a conversation that we didn't get on tape, so we're going to start over, and we'll go back to Linda. You were talking about where you started, okay? But,
right.
And Gary, also, let's remember to talk again about how you guys started your club here and all that history, okay?
Right.
So Linda, I hate to do it, but can you share that story again about how you got into German Shorthairs?
Yeah, I grew up around Shorthairs. My uncle had Shorthairs that he imported from Germany during World War II, and he went from there and would breed those dogs. And my dad always had German Shorthairs. And when I was a little girl, I would always go hunting with them. And here in Boise, we had lots of hunting. It was a very small town at that time, probably 20,000 people, and hunting wasn't very far away. So I would go with them and watch these dogs point these birds and retrieve these birds and work through the fields. And I just thought they were the most wonderful things in the world. And I knew when I grew up, I would also have these dogs.
Were they some of the early Shorthairs?
They were some of the early Shorthairs.
I mean, there weren't many other Shorthairs before that, right? Is that?
Well, there really weren't. We didn't have that many Shorthairs. I mean, it was kind of before my time, but Shorthairs kind of started becoming prevalent after World War II, when soldiers like Bob Holcomb, soldiers brought these dogs to the United States. And for the type of hunting that we all did here, they were perfect. So they became very popular. They were very popular in Boise. German Shorthaired Pointers were very popular in Boise. So after I grew up and got married, I was in my early 20s, had 2 kids, and my ex-husband and I decided we were going to get a German Shorthaired Pointer. And so there was a guy here, his last name was Stipe, and his Gerhard Stipe, Gary?
Hubert
Stipe.
Hubert.
Okay. And he had originally imported 2 with him when he moved here, 2 great big Wolfeisse Radback dogs. And he was kind of the local.
I saw those pedigrees yesterday with Ron Laird.
Probably
in Jim McHugh's folder. I saw those pedigrees. I remember seeing those.
Yeah, I've got some in here that I don't know if I've dug them out or not. But anyway, so we decided that we were going to pick out buy a puppy from him. We wanted a female. And I mean, I knew nothing of the situation out there. And when I went to pick out my puppy, all these dogs, his litters of puppies were in a house behind his house, and each room had a litter of puppies in it. And however, during the day, when those puppies got to an age, he would let them all go out into a play yard together. The puppies had no identifying markings on them, and they would all go out and play for several hours. And then he would bring them back into their houses. And I said, how did you know which puppy was which puppy with which mother?
Yeah.
How do you know? Oh, he says, I just know these dogs. And I'm sure up to a point he did know these dogs, but I just, at that time in my life, I wasn't that outspoken at that time as I have become. And so I thought, well, okay. So we waited a week. She was too young to leave. And so I picked her out, and I came back the next week to get this puppy. And I said, well, okay, here's our money. Where's her papers? I want her papers. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, he said. And he went in the kitchen of his house, and I went in there with him, and he pulled out this big drawer, and it was absolutely stuffed not in envelopes, all these loose registration papers.
Mm-hmm.
And he started shuffling through and he gave me one. And I said, this puppy is 14 weeks old. I said, this puppy supposedly that I have is 8 weeks old.
Yeah.
So he said, oh, that's the wrong one. And he got out this paperwork. And if she was actually that breeding, she was only 4 weeks old. And I remember thinking she was awfully little, but she was a nice dog. And of course, I fell in love with her right away. She was beautiful, graceful, a wonderful hunting dog. Bred her one time to Lancer D and sold those puppies. And her name was Wolfisa Radback Jennifer is what I named her.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept one puppy out of that litter. I kept a female, and her name was Sadie. And so that was my beginning. And I joined the German Shorthaired Pointer Club in 1973. We had taken these dogs hunting a lot. My ex-husband hunted constantly. He was a student at that time at Boise State. And we owned a nursery, a tree nursery in Boise. So we joined the club in 72, and they immediately appointed Pat as field trial chairman. We'd never been to a field trial before. Pat became field trial chairman, and I became field trial secretary. That was Gary was probably part of that group of people that nominated us to do that.
Was Pat your husband?
He was my husband.
Okay.
And was that ever a learning experience?
I bet.
Yeah. And so Gary needs to tell us more about the club.
Yeah. Gary.
It's a long story and it's been a long time ago. But anyway, in about 1959, 5 or 6 of us, Paul and Nina Ashley, and I can't even remember the other 3 or 4 people, got together and formed the club. And I think we held our first event in fall of 1960. And reason I became involved was my girlfriend at that time's folks had an old sloppy short hair. I have no idea what was out of it. It looked terrible on point. My God, I'd never seen dogs point. I've just been kicking weeds myself.
Uh-huh.
And I was impressed how this dog in the beet field was pointing these birds. So I said, my God, I got to get one of these.
Yeah.
And that was a night after we'd been out all day hunting, and I was kicking brush and not getting this dog's over here pointing these damn birds. And I mean, it was dark outside when we got home, and I told my father-in-law later on when I married my wife, I got to have one of those. He says, I know the guy. He says, up here on Philippi Street, Hubert Stupa. He's an old German.
Uh-huh.
And it's dark outside. I said, okay, let's go get one. So he went up there in the dark, and here was 100 goddamn pups. And he said, what do you want? Hell, I had no idea. Anyway, this solid liver one jumped up on the fence. I said, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
And that's how I got started, my Swiss Rod Box bourbon. And it was a wild sucker. I never did get him broke. I didn't know what he was doing, number one.
Uh-huh.
And but that was my start. And we went on from there, and he never turned out. He was too damned wild. I let him break and chase birds. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so that was my beginning in the short hairs back in the 59 and 60. And of course, later on, you go on in your short club and they start, judge this, will you? Judge that, you know. In the end, I end up judging all over the United States. You know, I probably judged, 10 national championships probably.
Wow.
And
wow.
Got all those judges' trophies on my wall. And and that was the beginning, you know, and then did it for years. And
it grew.
It grew from there to, you know, travel from New York to California, judging trials.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just as I got older now, I got to where I couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't keep. The dog started running a little bigger.
Yeah.
A little bigger. And we used to run in a brush pile when we first trial over at Boise Wildlife Preserve.
Yeah.
And you walked along. The judges were on horses, but we were walking then.
Mm-hmm.
And, your dogs didn't get that far, but it progressed from there.
That was a back course in a bird field, right? Then?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It was, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just grew from there to where, they started running a little bigger. Well, you can't run in that. That's too damn much brush in that. We can't see them. And so we did trials, started getting bigger and bigger. Pretty soon we went to horseback.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's evolved from there to where they are today.
So at what point you became a breeder? You had your,
right.
So let's, when did that, let's talk about where did that start?
Forget when I bought Kit.
Mm-hmm.
And she was my first
Kit. So we're talking
dog.
about Kit von Schembeck.
Yeah.
And you got her from what's his name? And she
Hubert?
was sick.
Oh,
he was going to put her down.
What was his name? The preacher over at Notice.
I don't remember.
She was, I had seen.
So she was what was the breeder? The people that had Kit that you bought
were the breeder.
They were the breeder.
Out of grief.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm looking here at her pedigree. She's out of Esther's Chick and Melissa von Greif.
Yeah. Right.
And did you, so I asked you the other day if you had any photos of Melissa von Greif.
I couldn't find
one.
No. I couldn't find one either. I found Gretchen, a picture of Gretchen, who was the grandmother of Kit. But
all right,
I had seen Blick. I think it was. It was out of the same litter.
Yeah, Blick was a brother to
and I thought,
Kit.
God, that's a hell of a dog. So I went to him to see, you got any of those left? Well, he said, yeah, I got one, but she's all about to die. I said, what do you mean? Well, one of these other dogs got on her and chewed her neck up, and she's got infection. I said, well, you been taking care of it? No. I'll see what happens. I said, how much you want? He said, I ain't going to sell her. I said, well, I'll buy her. I'll give you some money. He said, oh, hell, I don't know, $100. I said, I'll take her. I'll take her to the vet right now. And
wow,
her neck was, it was massively chewed up, infected. I took her to the vet right from there, and they treated her, and she came out of it. And she turned out to be a good dog.
That's kind of an understatement, yeah.
Yeah, and it seemed like I could breed her to anything, and you'd get fantastic pups.
Well, that's what Karen Klein shared with me. It's like she turned out to be an unbelievable producer because it didn't matter really who you bred her to.
You talk about line breeding. I was not really a line breeder. I was, what do I see in the fields? What's going on? And so I'd see a dog I liked. I didn't care.
Yeah.
I went more by what I saw in the field to breed her to.
So
more than the line.
There's so much to talk about here.
Yeah.
You got her, she recovered.
Right.
Then you started field trialing her.
Right.
And she was baby your first.
Yeah, first real
big name
I could win with.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Solid liver female, right?
Solid liver female.
Looks like a really pretty, beautiful build. I've seen the photos of her, and I just think, that's a look right there.
Right.
So did you ever see Esther's Chick personally?
Boy, I don't remember seeing him. I don't.
That's fine. I just was curious if you ever did meet the dog.
I think
can't
he was
remember.
A little bit bigger.
Yeah, could have been.
From his pictures that I've seen, he was a little bit bigger dog than Kit.
So somewhere I had seen him and I kind of liked him.
Yeah.
And, same as all the breedings.
Well, you were judging all over the country.
Yeah. So I saw most all the dogs.
Yeah.
But
anyway, let's talk about Kit. What did you start? You started working with her and then campaigning her.
Yeah. I started working her, campaigning her, and she was doing really good. And then I bred her, and her name got out. Oh, what's that dog out of? Yeah. So pretty soon I started getting requests, and breeding her. the dogs that I liked.
Yeah.
Not particularly line breed, but they turned out, and they just kept getting requests for her pups because they were all turning out really good.
Mm-hmm.
So that was her beginning, and she worked up. And at one time, I don't know, she was a number whatever in these yearbooks
In the country,
the top breeding
top 5 or
female.
whatever. Yeah. Maybe the top female.
Toward the top. I won't say she was the top,
Uh-huh.
but she was toward the top.
I
And
think at one time she was at the top, but then,
could have been.
you know,
Yeah.
she's been gone for so long.
Oh yeah.
And
I mean, one of the things that I always kind of view the short hair pedigrees and the short hair world is
Right.
I look at it from like there were 3 main dogs. And this is my opinion.
Right.
That was the Axel von Wasserschling, the Greif dog,
Yeah.
and K. von der Wahlberg.
Yeah.
But all 3 dogs, German,
Yeah.
Greif was Austrian, I think.
Austrian import,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think so.
But
Sure, microphone. There you go.
okay. And so I'm looking at Kit's pedigree,
Mhm.
and so as her chick on the top
Right.
out of Axel,
Yeah.
and then Melissa von Greif,
Yeah.
So there's
Strong.
that blending of the Wasserschling and Greif,
Greif right there.
and then you bred her to Thalberg's Seagrave's Shane,
Right.
that was pretty much line bred Greif with some other German stuff in there.
Yeah.
And that produced a pretty good dog named Lancer D.
Not too bad. Lancer D was that was Jim Reed. He had bought a dog from me, and I don't remember why it died. Anyway, it got sick and died. I said, well, come back, Jim. I'll give you one. Take your pick. He picked that one. It turned out to be Lancer D. You couldn't go on from there.
Right.
What luck he had picking that particular pup out as
Yeah.
replacement.
Yeah.
And
So he was the owner of Lancer D.
he was the owner. Yeah, Jim Reed. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
And-
not with us anymore. But,
Yeah.
very active in the short hair world.
And then
Yes.
you, I'm assuming
He
you
was
bred.
was he local? So you got to see
Oh yeah.
Lancer D.
Well,
judge him, and-
even got to train with him because Dave McGinnis did not live too far from us at that time after he
Mhm.
moved down from Washington.
I think he came, in
As-
61 or 62?
don't remember when it
something like that.
was.
I had it
Yeah.
in there, and I, of course, did
So
not
I
pull
trained
this
with him a
out.
lot. I got to see a lot of the Greif dogs and the
Uh-huh.
dogs. I can't even remember their names.
All right. So did you ever see the original Greif dog? The Greif von Schembeck?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah,
I
okay.
don't think so.
But okay, so you saw a lot of stuff out of him, though.
But the Greif and the Broadbach
Yeah.
is kind of a big deal then.
Right.
And,
Von Thalberg's Fritz. Did you ever see that dog?
that sounds familiar.
Yeah. He was the sire of Thalberg Seagrave's Shane. Yeah.
Okay.
National field champion,
Yep,
field
He
champion.
was. I'd seen him several times, and
Yeah.
I was impressed.
Yeah.
With him. He was a little outlawish in him. But I thought, well, we kind of need that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
these dogs progressively, I mean, you said in the beginning they didn't run that big.
at the start, but it kept.
What changed? Did the dogs change or did the course just
The courses did change
Mhm.
to allow
bigger running?
bigger running dogs. We want to be able. We want them to cover
Mhm.
the territory, but we want to be able to see them once in a while too.
And then you're also mixing these dogs. You're intensifying. I'll call it there was the bigger running. The
Right.
tendency, like Greif seemed to throw that.
Yeah.
K. von der Wahlberg threw that.
Yeah.
I mean, Kit was Kit was she a gun dog?
She was more of a gun dog. Yes, she really was. She could wide running gun dog, but I would say she was a gun dog, and
Was
and
she
that's
easy
one
to
of the
train? Was she easy to train? Was she
she was easy for
honest dog?
Yeah, honest dog. She won the national German Pointing Dog Championship in Illinois, and that was pretty brushy, and that was kind of her
Forte.
forte. Yeah, she
Yeah.
liked that, and so she looked I didn't see it. I wasn't there. Dave McGinnis ran her
Okay.
and won that national championship there. And, she was just always had to look at her.
Yeah.
Just that kind of dog, fast moving and stylish. And so
Snappy race.
Yeah.
Yeah. She had a real snappy race.
Yeah. So that was kind of my whole beginning.
Would you say she's your foundation female then?
Oh yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
And what about, were there any others? What others were there after that?
Well, it was just,
and if that's,
it's hard for me to remember.
I understand
all that stuff.
I don't want to stump you there.
Yeah, well, I'm just old man now.
Well, hey,
there's so much I wished I could remember that I can't.
No, that's awesome.
I've seen so many
Mm-hmm.
short hairs and all these judgings, and you run into.
I talk about it all the time. I'm a NAVTA judge, and I used to think, like, how could you not remember? When you go watch it, how can you not remember that dog?
Yeah.
It was so great, and sometimes the next day, you kind of like, oh yeah, that was a pretty good run, but you don't really remember that much about it.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine 70 years.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I remember it, and I don't know why. At that time, it was the largest limited gun dog stake that had ever been run in Reno. There was 105 or something like that dogs entered. Took us 5 days to judge it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're trying to remember 100 dogs, what happened here.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough,
And were you judging that?
Yes, I was judging that.
I think good notes.
Yeah.
John Rabideau, I think, ended up winning it.
Mm-hmm.
As I remember, I wouldn't know what dog.
Boss
for
man?
sure. I no, it was a different dog, but I sure don't remember exactly. It would be in the books somewhere,
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, I brought them all, but you said you have a set anyway.
Yeah, I have the yearbooks. I can look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when for here, you ask what changed everything.
Mm-hmm.
The fact when Dave McGinnis moved here, we got a pro in this area. And Dave was really, really a good handler. And he was really, really good about sharing his knowledge.
Hmm.
And we would all go training with him.
Oh, wow.
And so we would go out, we'd help. I mean, we'd plant birds for each other. We'd gun birds for each other. We would, and he was just, and I was, of course, at the time that I started with this, I was so new with all of this. And I was so impressed because he did not treat each dog the same. He got to know the dog's personality, and he treated each dog with what they were. If he had a tough dog, now a dog that was a tough dog was Lancer.
Oh.
Some of that was Jim Reed's fault, because every year Jim Reed would take Lancer hunting and he would not keep him steady.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dave McGinnis, he would say, oh my God, I've just kind of given up. I just have to re-break Lancer every spring when he comes back to me for field trials.
Yep.
Because Jim has, and Lancer was just black-hearted enough that he took advantage of that. He was a super smart dog.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was tough.
Yeah, he was tough
and just almost out of control.
Really?
Yeah, Dave had to really be on him all the time because he was just about to break any time if you didn't.
Yeah. Gotcha. He was on the edge.
He was.
Dave would say, I'd love to be his friend. I can't be his friend. I can't treat him like that.
Yeah.
We have a business relationship, and that is the way it always was.
Yeah.
When Jim finally retired Lancer, Dave went up and he gave him a big love, and he says, okay, we don't have to go through this anymore. You can be my friend.
Yeah.
So,
awesome story there.
Yeah.
He was kind of black-hearted.
He was.
And so, I'm looking here at the progression of things. You have Axel and Greif, and later there's Kay in the mix here with your dog.
With Abe.
So we got Axel, Kay, Greif. Then we go to, Kit von Schembeck.
Yeah.
And you bred to Shane. and produced Lancer D that produced your dog, Airlocker Abe. So, I mean, it's fun to see this connection, with these really great dogs that were just one by one, in their own period in time were the dominant dogs that everybody, I mean, I'm in the Midwest, but these are the dogs everybody was talking about, even, when I came into the short hair world, it was in the late 80s, but those were the dogs people are still talking about, and like wanted that in their pedigrees.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of dogs we haven't talked about that Dave ran that won nationals. And I can't remember them, but Patty Von Frulord and
the Frulord dogs and Major, and then Sarge, the Billows's dog, Major, and they were Mosgard dogs.
Yeah. There's I'm looking at your dog's pedigree and I'm looking at some of these. There's names here like the Tip Top Timmy and Tip Top Timber that I've not heard a lot about.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot about their backgrounds, but obviously they were in this region, right?
No.
They weren't.
People just bred to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
People bred to them.
They were Midwest dogs, I believe.
Okay.
Or East. Cave under Wildberg was from Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah.
Richard Johns was.
Dick Johns. Yeah, that's right.
And he owned him. Well, not at first, but then he purchased him. He judged him at a couple of the NGSPA nationals.
Yeah, something there that I've heard is Bodo Winterhelt, who started NAVDA, one of the founders of NAVDA, was involved in bringing K. von der Wahlberg over from Germany. May have even been a part owner. I don't know.
I think he was.
So go ahead
and so Paul and Dina Ashley, who were founding members, they bred one of their dogs to K. von der Wahlberg after Richard Dick Johns owned him. And that is, this line here. And then they took their...
This is your dog's pedigree.
Right. So. They took their Misty dog, who was a show champion, bred her to Lancer. And so they were members of the club
here.
And at that point in time, I decided I really wanted to be part of field trials. The dogs that I had, they could run, but they weren't winning a lot, So I decided that I was going to buy one of those puppies. This was my first mistake. I bought this puppy for my ex-husband for Christmas.
You bought for your ex-husband.
For my ex-husband.
But he wasn't your ex-husband yet.
He wasn't my ex-husband yet.
Okay.
But I came to be sorry that I had bought him for him rather than myself.
Gotcha.
So anyway, Paul and Dina, I lived on North 15th Street. Paul and Dina lived on North 13th Street, right in the north end, old part of town. So I was really good friends with Dina. And I said, I put a down payment on one of those puppies. I was first pick. No, I was second pick. There was a doctor. What was his name, honey? That had first pick. He went hunting with us in Arizona. Okay. Age is a great thing. Yeah. Anyway, he was an orthopedic surgeon here in Boise, and he had first pick. So I watched the puppies. I went over to see the puppies probably 2 or 3 times a week as they developed. And Abe was just an outstanding puppy.
Yeah.
I mean, he stood high. He had his head high. His tail was always high and cracking. And all the other puppies, they were nice puppies. There was nothing wrong with any of them, but he was just this dog, and he had this toy, a stuffed dog. And if any of these other puppies wanted that stuffed dog, he was having absolutely no part of it.
Right.
And he would just prance around with that. So I told Dina early on, I said, that's my pick. I want that dog. So she said, okay, well, I have Dr. whatchamacallit, and he has first pick, but he's only a hunter. He's never going to do anything with him. other than hunt him. I mean, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But he will never campaign this dog in anything. He'll never show this dog. And he kind of liked this big, solid liver male. So he was gonna pick that dog. Well, then the puppies were 8 weeks old right after Christmas. And my ex and I were going to Hawaii. And I said, Dina, I'll be back right after Christmas time, and I'll come and get Abe when he's 8 weeks old. Mm-hmm. So I got home and I called her and she said, Linda, there's been a problem. She said, this dog that this doctor had picked out, he got sick, lost a bunch of weight and stuff. So he's changed his mind and he wants Abe. Mm-mm. I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, Dina. And I said, okay. I said, if he takes Abe, I'm not taking one. I will not take any dog but that dog.
Good move.
So I actually had gone to see her and I told her that. And I came home and it didn't take me. My phone was ringing. My daughter was sitting. We had a big bay window. She opens the window and she says, Mom, it's Dina. She wants to talk to you. She says, come back and get him. He's yours.
Okay. So
I went back and got him. The guy ended up being kind of pissed off, but he kept that dog, the big liver male.
Yeah, he probably got better, recovered.
He loved that dog. He thought he was the best hunting dog he ever had. And when that dog died, he bought 2 short hair puppies from Abe.
Yeah.
He had Abe puppies, but he always told the story.
Beautiful story.
She got my dog.
Yeah.
So, then I said, well, it was my dog.
Sure did.
Yeah.
I sure did. I sure did, And so, I mean, I never regretted it. Then when my ex-husband and I got divorced, I had been offered like a Japanese guy who imported German Shorthaired Pointers came to where Abe won the Futurity, the Branched Oaks grounds, and there were some pictures of Abe.
So how old was Abe at that point?
He was not quite 2.
Yeah, young dog.
I think there may still be pictures of Abe in the clubhouse.
There probably is.
At Branched Oak.
There probably
Where is
is.
that?
Nebraska.
Yeah. Anyway, he somehow got my phone number and called me, and he said, I want to buy Abe. He says, I saw his picture on the wall of the clubhouse. He says, I want to buy Abe. I said, well, Abe's not for sale. He said, well, I'll give you $10,000 for him. I said, Abe's not for sale. And he said, okay. And he'd come back. He'd say, I'd give you $15,000. Well, we stopped at $50,000. And I said, I hate to tell you, Abe is not for sale.
Wow.
He will never be for sale. This was like in 19. Abe won the Futurity in 70.
He's a 2-year-old dog.
2-year-old. Yeah.
So when Pat and I got divorced, when we made our settlement, I had to pay him $50,000 for my dog.
Oh my gosh.
Because he had a value.
He had been valued. And of course, I was told him the story, which I should never have told him the story.
Well, you didn't know you were going to.
I didn't know. Yeah. And
wow.
So there was no price that would have bought him.
Yeah, imagine what $50,000 was. Back then.
My gosh.
No.
And when I got divorced and, was a single mom with 2 kids and working 3 jobs, and I thought, boy, you weren't very smart, were you? But that's okay. Abe was a once in a lifetime dog that he never didn't do anything that you asked him to do. And he was the most wonderful friend. And he introduced me to so many people across this country and this guy in Japan,
Right.
We communicated after that. And, he just introduced me to all these people that became lifetime friends. I mean, I knew Gary before, but our bond through Abe and Kit and Lancer was so strong because of this dog. And he was just a wonderful dog.
Yeah.
And I ran him until he went to the futurity. I ran him. I won the Derby Classic here, the Region 9 Derby Classic with him. But during those days, there was no women that ran dogs.
Oh yeah, I'm just thinking about that. It's like
no women. And at first I didn't have a horse, and so I was on foot. And all these men, they were like
you sort of hesitated there.
Yeah.
search for a word.
All these men, I mean, it was kind of
the deck was stacked against you a little bit.
It was stacked against me.
Right.
There was one other person, Sandy Dietering. Sandy, I can't remember what her name was back then. And she had the Lancer D dog also that she was running. He was a gun dog.
Let's just pause a second here. You're a divorced mother of 3 children.
2 children, yeah.
2 children. And you've jumped in there and had you run the dogs yourself before that, or?
I had worked them all before that, just because I felt that he would go out hunting every fall. My husband, and those poor dogs were in such bad physical condition that they would come home and wouldn't be able to walk for the next week, until he took them out the next weekend hunting. So I thought, well, this is ridiculous. So I started working the dogs, working with Dave McGinnis, going out.
Gotcha. So you were working with Dave.
Yeah, I worked with Dave a lot.
And the club helped each other, you said.
The club helped each other.
So you're out there working together with these people.
Learning a lot, learning from Gary, learning from Dave, learning from Jim Reed. Of course, Jim Reed always said, what in the hell do you think you're doing? You need to give that dog to a man to run.
Oh, wow. Wow. Fighting words.
Those were fighting words, especially for me in those days. Those were fighting words. And and then I ran him all around the Northwest here until he was 2 years old. And other than the Derby Classic that I won, every time I ran him, which was a lot, we got a second place ribbon. Every time. Got a second place ribbon.
Right. They wouldn't put you up.
They wouldn't put me up in first place.
Yeah, let's make sure we clarify here that didn't mean he wasn't the better dog.
It didn't mean he wasn't the better dog.
It just meant
because he was always there. Every time. I don't think he ever wasn't there, except one time we went to Seattle.
Were you walking or
I was walking at that time. And Bill and Doreen Billows, who had this major, and I'm just starting, and he's 7 months old. And I said, one thing about Abe, he never runs away. I mean, I ate those words after that. So I ran him in East Seattle, and Abe went out and he made this huge cast, and he came back and I thought, don't come back and check with me. And he came back again, and it was kind of like, see ya, Mom.
Yeah.
I didn't find him until after this race was over.
Right.
So Bill Billows never let me forget that. He said, remember, one thing about it is
he never runs
Abe never runs away.
Yeah, he wants to rub that in a little bit.
Oh, he wanted to rub that in, but it was pretty funny. We all got a big kick out of it.
I'm so impressed that you were actually out there. You were running him.
Oh, I was. I bought horses. I bought horse trailers. I bought 10 acres. We built a house.
Wow.
To do this.
Let's, I'm trying to think where to go here with talking about Abe to learn more about him.
So after he won the Derby, is that you said then that you stopped running him?
He went to Dave McGinnis. Dave McGinnis ran him. Actually, John Rabideau ran him at the futurity. Dave was there, but Dave's wife Donna was very ill with cancer, and she got very sick, and so Dave asked John if he would please run Abe for him. And so John did. And John had worked him during the summer when John Rabideau always came here. He lived in
Texas.
Minnesota.
I thought he lived in Texas.
Now, but he didn't. That's not where he started.
Okay. He was in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wisconsin, I think.
Wisconsin. Yeah.
Okay.
Wisconsin.
Gotcha.
So he would come out every summer and train with Dave McGinnis. And then they would go to the local trials together. John would go to the local trials. So he did know Abe. So he ran him. And Abe was just, I mean, he put down a performance like, I mean, I couldn't believe how good he ran, and he won it. He was so much more mature than all these other dogs. He, when he was 11-month-old puppy, my ex-husband took him goose hunting in the Snake River. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen how big the Snake River is.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really cold winter, and he took Abe out. They shot a goose, and Abe was just a retrieving fool.
Mm-hmm.
And he jumped out, and of course, it was out in the current. Abe had to break ice to get out there to get him,
Mm-hmm.
and he disappeared down the river. And Pat said, "Oh my God," he says, "I didn't know. I knew I couldn't go back home again if that dog didn't come back."
Mm-hmm.
And about 20 minutes later, here comes Abe running down the bank with this goose in his mouth.
Wow. What a
and
story.
retrieved it to hand.
What a story.
Never had to be forced to retrieve. I mean, he was just one of those dogs.
That's some things I was going to ask about. It's like, what kind of dog was he? Was like easy to train
Easy to train.
and
Never wanted to be in trouble.
a lot of net. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Unlike his father,
Mm-hmm.
more like his grandma.
His grandma.
It's Kit.
Kit.
Wanted to please you. Didn't want to be in trouble,
Mm-hmm.
but he wasn't.
And he was.
He never acted like he was scared
Mm-hmm.
or anything. He never had to be.
He just
ruthless.
wanted you to be happy.
He wanted whoever was handling him,
Right.
and he loved Dave McGinnis.
Love dogs like that.
He was great.
And it sounds like Dave was a real gifted.
Oh, he was a great guy. He died when he was 49 of cancer.
Wow.
He got it too. He got a lung cancer. He was a
His wife
smoker.
at 45.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And after Dave passed, it just kind of took the heart out of everybody in the valley. I retired Abe at 5. He never ran after 5. He
Oh.
accomplished his national championships and everything before he was 5
Now,
years old.
The trial you mentioned a minute ago, that the futurity that that Dave handled him, or that Rabideau handled
John
him?
handled him.
So then the national field title he has, where was that? Was that in Kansas?
Illinois. He
Illinois.
did the NGSPA championship. He won it in 80, 81, and 83.
So he won it
He-
3 times.
He won the all breed championship in 82. No, he won the NGSPA twice.
Twice, okay.
The futurity was the AKC futurity.
Mm-hmm.
He was not registered in the NGSPA futurity. He won the AKC Nationals in Albuquerque, New Mexico in 1982. He was runner-up in the Pheasant Championship. He won the Chucker Championship, and at that time it was a national championship. It's now since a species championship.
So I want to pause there on that in a second. Let's talk about when you say a chucker championship, are you running on wild chuckers or are these released chuckers?
Both.
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 So they're running a trial on, is it in the hills, I guess, or is it flat
The ones
land?
in Arizona were in the White Mountains,
Yeah.
And
the
I'm
Chucker
assuming,
Championship.
and people are riding horses, I'm assuming.
People are riding horses.
Yep. And so this chucker championship that's a GSPCA event?
That was an NGSPA.
Okay. So
Now they have changed their format. They have species championships, which are the pheasant, the chucker. We hold here in Idaho, the Chucker Championship.
probably a grouse,
The grouse,
sharp
the
tail, maybe.
pheasant.
Uh-huh.
All of those are held in different places around the country. And
So when you
then
say-
you have the regionals.
Mm-hmm.
So no longer is that a national championship, but it was a national championship at that time.
Gotcha.
Because yesterday, Ron Laird showed us that glass case with chuckers in it, and Jack
Mhm.
Myers Evolution won that.
That was an Abe grandson.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can't remember what
What a
remember
legacy.
year that was on that.
I got a picture of it.
It was probably
I took a picture. I can show you. That's interesting, isn't it? You guys I'll pull it up here.
The
What's
one that Ron Laird had.
Here it is. It was 1988.
88.
Yeah.
Was it still a national then? So
Yeah.
Ron wasn't sure if he was like, well, maybe he did win a national championship. He couldn't remember if that was a national then or wasn't a national then.
I think it probably was.
Yeah, it was.
I think in the 90s it changed.
Yeah, the more he was thinking about it, he's like, he might have won a national.
It's called the National German Shorthaired Pointer Chucker Association.
Right, and it was a national championship. So
open all age.
On Abe, the tag, it says right on it, National Chucker Championship.
Yeah.
But now they're not. They're species championships.
This is, this lineage, you just mentioned it, but like you've got Abe and Lancer D. And then yesterday we meet with, Ron, who has Flyers Evolution, Jack, and there was Shiloh von Hessenwald. He had also, who was out of Blick, right?
Yeah.
Blick von Schembeck. Go ahead. I'm sorry, man. Oh, my mic is out of place again. I'm sorry, dude.
That's all right.
I mean, it just has a mind of its own.
Uh-huh.
Who owned Blick? I know I've known that. And
John Merrill?
Well, in the end, because I see who owned him. I think I saw him and I called Johnny
Merrill.
Yeah. And told him, hey, if you can, you need to purchase this dog. It's going to win for you. And I can't remember who owned him.
Yeah. The breeder though, you told you that you bought Kit from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hulsey.
John Hulsey.
John
Hulsey, yeah.
So his name came to mind there.
Yeah.
So where did he live?
Notice, Idaho.
Okay.
West of here.
He was a club member also.
Yeah.
He belonged to our club.
So let's just circle back to this original German breeder that was in the area. Did he sort of fade away or?
His son he died.
Yeah. So his dogs didn't end up being.
Well, they're in a lot of dogs.
Right.
They're in a lot of dogs, but he never field trialed his own dogs.
Gotcha.
Yeah. He sold a lot of dogs to field trialers, and they are in a lot of dogs
in this area.
And I've often questioned, and I keep forgetting to ask Kay, where does that radback come from?
Well, the radback that's another point I was going to ask about is like, so there's the German, we're going to talk to Karen tonight about that.
Right.
The Rodbach kennel, and I don't know which way to say it, Rodbach or Radback, but German, it was a German kennel.
Everybody knows. So that's probably where his came from, was the German
I'm not
kennel.
sure Bob Holcomb didn't bring that over.
Oh, and he did bring it over.
Yeah.
So he became friends with the Rodbach kennel owner in Germany.
Yeah.
And then he was allowed to bring that name over here. And I think this kennel still exists in Germany too.
Could be.
And, it goes way back. It was pre-World War II.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of Rodbach dogs in this part of the country.
This part of the country, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
So
Bob was a good trainer, but he never wandered much from Oregon and Washington.
Okay.
Running trials, and I can't remember seeing him at a national anywhere, Pretty much stuck to Washington, Oregon. Very successful.
Right.
Probably more of a gun dog trainer.
Mm-hmm. And what I'm seeing is also interesting is like it seemed like even though you guys were competing at some level, you also seemed to be close and helped each other.
We had lots of camaraderie.
Yeah.
In those days, it was, we were all friends and supporting each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I don't feel that now, but then I'm not really in it like I was.
And another thing that I think is like, listen to the stories. Almost everybody I've talked to, you came into the German Shorthair world kind of through the, interest in hunting, and you sort of grew it grassroots, I'll call it. You didn't buy into it. And it wasn't, I don't hear this being dominated by a bunch of people or a few people with a lot of money.
No.
Like, I'm not saying people didn't have money, but it's like, this wasn't something that only a few people could do.
No, there were some people that were that way. There was the guy in Texas. What was his name? Steve Lyons that bought White Smoke. White Smoke was grown and developed, and he bought him. Dave McGinnis was his trainer. I was with him the first time White Smoke that Dave ran White Smoke.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't very impressed. And Dave did a lot with him, but I was never very impressed with White Smoke. And
we're talking about Jig's White Smoke.
Jig's White Smoke.
Yeah.
And then, was it Jig's White Smoke? Yeah.
Yeah, I believe so.
Jig's, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And another one is Armour. What was Armour's first name? Jim Armour?
Jim.
Armour Meatpacking.
Oh.
Owned that company. He was another one. When Abe was like 7 months old, he called Dave McGinnis and he said, I'll buy that puppy. How much does she want for him? And Dave said, I don't know. I don't know. I have never asked her. Tell her I'll give her $5,000 for him. 7-month-old puppy. And I said, no way. And so Dave
you were
said,
pretty,
no way.
you believed in this dog, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
I knew he was
From 4 weeks on.
Yeah.
I knew he was the one.
Isn't that something?
I knew he was there was just something about that dog.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was young and excited and so enthralled with the sport. I loved horses. I loved the dogs.
Wow.
Drug my kids all over. My son became a dog trainer, but he trains hunting dogs.
Mm-hmm.
He lives up in Kuski, Idaho. He worked with Dave McGinnis during his younger years, was a real crack shot. I mean, he always wanted Jerry to be your gunner. So we'd bring him out and he was the gunner at the field trials. But anyway, so Armour comes back and he says, all right. He says, I'll pay her $10,000. There's no way that she can
turn that down.
Yeah. I said to Dave, ain't no way. I'm not selling him. And I said, don't you ever bring these offers to Pat Cross. My husband, I said, because he'll take it. Mm-hmm. And I was foolish enough to buy that dog for him for a Christmas present.
Wow. So
my name was on it.
That's
too.
why you had to buy the dog from him. I got you.
He made me buy.
Wow. You're pretty tough.
I was in that respect.
Well, yeah. No, I respect
that dog was the most exciting thing. I mean, I had so much fun with that dog.
Well, he's, what's the CD Maxwell? I can't remember how.
Yeah, CD Maxwell.
Maxwell. Like he's the cover dog.
Yeah, I've got the book in there.
Yeah.
He's the spine also. The headshot on the spine.
Oh, okay.
Is his head.
Gotcha.
And she talks about him in there. And at that time, he was really young when that book came out. Mm-hmm. And he hadn't accomplished all the things that he did accomplish.
Well, and I'm just staring at his pedigree right now. And he's actually a blend of all three of those big dogs that I mentioned that are kind of I call them the pillars of the breed. Mm-hmm. And and
a dog that really hasn't been recognized that much is this Abe. He's not in the Hall of Fame for the NGSPA.
You're talking about K.
About K.
He's not in the Hall of Fame.
He is not. He's in the AKC Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. I'm going to talk to Keith Richardson, and I've been trying to. He told me that Richard Johns was not in the Hall of Fame, and I said, I'm sure he's in the Hall of Fame. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess the other night when I was trying to refresh my mind, I went online and I opened up the website. Well, he's on the last page, but he's in the Hall of Fame. And when you talk about, I took a copy of the history in the front of that website. It talks about all the dogs. Mm-hmm. K von Wildbirds is Wildbird. He won like 2 or 3 of the first NGSPA championships in the late 50s, early 60s.
Wow.
So I think that dog does, and he's also a dual champion. Abe was a dual champion, and I finished him in that. And that was the craziest thing too.
So, something that just popped in my head right now is like Kay was bred back to his daughter, Dolores Brandy von der Wahlberg, I think was a Kay daughter, bred back to Kay. That produced, and then that dog was the mother of, and maybe I'm getting that wrong, but like Esser's Duke. Esser's Duke was out of Esser's Chick, and then a Kay
daughter.
A Kay daughter that was
I used to try to get him in with the bitches that I would breed to. I wanted to have that dog in there.
In there, okay.
Because Abe was such a good combination of them both.
It seemed like to me, it looked like that's what people were doing with different. It's almost like those were the 3 ingredients on their countertop that they would mix to blend their recipe of what they thought would be the best mix.
Good one. And it's a guess. I mean, some people think that they're experts,
right,
at pedigree, at breeding,
right.
But you throw all those genetics in a bottle and
shake it up and see.
Shake it up.
Hopefully, you get something good,
and hope you get something. And a lot of time, I mean, the more good ones you breed, too, the better they get. Just like Gary, I mean, Kit was a dog that you could breed to any male, any good running,
beautiful
good
dog.
male, and she would have champion.
Isn't that amazing
puppies.
that dog almost was put down?
We actually tried to breed her to Abe to do a real line breeding.
Oh yeah,
but she was what, 11?
Something where it's just too old.
And it just
basically
just didn't take.
Breeding him back to his grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
But we didn't get puppies.
You did do it, and it just didn't take.
We did do it, and it didn't take.
Yeah.
So
that would have been something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed. So you talked about the story of the goose. So I think it's pretty cool that you guys hunted them too. You waterfowl hunted them,
right?
As well as upland hunted and child and did all of it.
And he did it all. He'd come back and just be covered with ice, and sit there and be cold. And I used to think, oh God, we can't do that with him, And I bought all the jackets and all the stuff, to put on him. And
$50,000 dog is going down the
snake
river.
With
yeah.
He wasn't $50,000 yet, but he was.
That was a fun party.
It was still priceless to me. I mean, he was priceless. I hadn't been offered armor was the only one.
What about frozen semen? Were people doing that?
I couldn't afford it at that time.
Yeah.
I was a single mom working 3 jobs.
What about
at that time? There was only Texas or Minnesota or something. There was only 2 places that were freezing that semen, and they had to have them for 60 days.
60 days.
And you had to pay boarding.
Oh,
I just didn't have it.
Wow.
Yeah. I was always, if I ever won the lottery, I was going to dig him up and clone him. He's right in the corner back
he's buried in the corner of this? Wow. Unbelievable.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask, what about Lancer D? Was he ever collected and frozen?
Mm-mm.
I don't know.
Yeah. I don't think so.
Probably not.
Jim was too tight to do that.
I know.
Okay.
Well, I feel like you guys knew they were special, but I feel like that's a much more common thing now. Like you can go find a vet and they can collect it, send it off, and
well, my male Jeep who greeted you guys barking, he comes from Keith and Bobby Richardson Prairie Wind Kennels. He's got Bayer's Evolution. Evolution is in his, and of course Abe is in his lines. We had a little female that we bred to, actually. Thus, I never thought I'd have black German Shorthaired Pointers. I have 2. We bred him to a black female. And they had 11 puppies, 6 of which were males, 5 of which were females, 6 of which were liver, and 5 of which were black. And we had to collect him because she didn't want it. We had one natural tie, and then she wouldn't stand for him. So we took her over to Nampa to a friend of ours who operated that breeding clinic, and she collected him. And so, I mean, it's just like you just go to the neighborhood vet, practically. I mean, it was a little bit more than that, but it's just so much easier. It's in your own town. You don't have to fly your dog or drive your dog to Texas or Minnesota.
So I got a little question for you. It's not a little question. And I don't expect we may not come up with an answer here or solve it, but I've had this discussion with some of my circle of friends, and there's this discussion about, well, it goes back to, why are you breeding back to old dogs? Why are you breeding back to frozen semen? And I mean, for me, I'm like, that is an awesome opportunity to go back to some foundational dog and pull them back up to the front. And some of the discussion from other folks is like, well, the dogs, aren't the dogs today better than the dogs? So I saw you laugh, and I know my answer to them was, but I'd be curious, and I don't want to put you on the spot here. If you don't feel like answering, that's fine. But it's like the dogs of today compared to the dogs we're talking about that you guys had back in those days, are the dogs of today better, or is there such a thing as making them better? Is like there's great. Well, I mean, to me, it's like if you define great,
it's great.
And how do you make great better? You only hope to preserve it.
Keep great going.
There you go. So I'm probably putting words. I didn't mean to put the answer in your mouth.
I feel you're keeping great going. You're going back to the strength of what you brought forward. The trials that we run now, we run trials in bigger grounds than what we were running in there. We've changed it. We're all on Tennessee walkers going as fast as we can. And don't tell me that doesn't encourage the dogs.
It's pushing them.
Oh, yeah.
To run bigger, because it does. Mm-hmm. Does that make them really better? I don't know. I would have put Abe up against, but you know how I am about Abe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would have put Abe up against any of them now. Mm-hmm. It might take a little while to work with him, but he was such a big running dog, but he was such an honest dog. When he won the national in Albuquerque, I think it was, he was so far out. Gary was there. Didn't you win the shooting dog? You were running somebody else's dog.
I don't know.
In New Mexico. Anyway.
Too long ago for me.
Abe was so far out. The first bird that he had, I mean, he was just so far out. We didn't see him for a while. And I thought, oh, shit. Is he gone? Did he disappear? And you know, Albuquerque's really open.
Oh, yeah.
And finally we came up over this hill and about 3 ahead, and we'd already gone over several. Here was Abe just on this staunch, gorgeous, head up, tail up, foot up, picture point. Mm. And Dave just took his time going up there, kind of showboated. Mm-hmm. And
it feels good when you can trust it.
You know that you're pretty safe.
Yep.
Chances are he's going to still be there. The bird might not be there.
Right.
But the bird was there. And everything was accomplished in fine manners. So then he cast him off again. I think he had 4 fines that day. And his very last fine, we were kind of coming back. And you could see Abe. He was running so fast, and all of a sudden he spins around and he just kept on sliding. And
oh man,
when we got there, he was on. I mean, he didn't lay down on point. He slid into a skidding point, and he never changed his position. And the judges came up. I could see they were going. Dave just went and he tapped him. He stood right back up.
So what were they? They were just like wanting him to style up or something? I mean,
well, they were just, I mean, you're going to put a dog as a national champion that's laying on point.
Well, you just saw him.
Yeah, skidded right in. Well, he won. I mean, he won. He was so impressive. He did win, but I just thought, holy shit, I've never seen a dog do that before.
Wow. I bet you were proud.
I mean, it just gave you goosebumps.
Oh, yeah.
It gives me goosebumps to talk about it now.
Well, it should.
It was just.
I'm glad it does.
That was the last national that he ran in.
Awesome.
Then Dave died of cancer about a year after that. And I took him out once and ran him at the our Pointer Center championships. And he won that. But then I thought, what else am I going to ask him to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, he got his stool. And
so who showed him? You did. You showed him.
Dave Hill's wife Jan ran him once, or showed him once.
So they're pulling in the Hillhaven
He was a really good friend. They were good friends of Dave's.
Oh, they were.
And they, I can't remember. They were at a trial that Abe won. I don't remember what it was. And Jan said, if you ever need somebody to show him, I can probably get him finished in 1 or 2 shows.
Wow.
So I had started him out as a baby. And then he went to Jan. Jan won 1 trial with him, or 1 show with him. Then he came back home. And I ran him in Tri-Cities, Washington, at a 3 trial thing. And he was kind of thin for them. And at the one, I can't remember which one it was that I showed him in, these seagulls flew over and we were running around the ring. And Abe just froze on point. And do you think I could get that dog to go?
Of course not.
I could not get him to go. And the judge is like,
come on.
All the people are bumping up, because everybody's
You're doing
running
your go
around.
around.
Yeah, what's that dog doing standing there like that?
And so he said, that judge said, well, I understand he's doing what he does, but he's a little thin for me. So he didn't place him. But the very next day, I ran him in the other one, and he got his points, his major, and got his dual championship at that time.
Wow.
So he was always fun.
Yeah.
But I'm dominating the conversation.
No, that's fun. So did we answer the question about great today versus great yesterday?
Well, what do you think, Gary?
Well, both ways. There's great dogs today too.
Mm-hmm.
There are. Yes.
Depends on what you like.
Mm-hmm.
Might want to go back for something you really liked to bring it on up forward.
Yeah. I guess my stand with some of them and the conversations I had with people is like, look, I mean, because I've been asked, well, how do you think the dogs have improved since you started, so forth? What I have, and I'm thinking, first of all, I thought, well, I guess I'm going to have to be pretty humble and say, I don't know that I improved anything. I had a couple dogs that I considered great dogs that I didn't want to lose.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to preserve that. The best I can hope for is that I continue to produce or occasionally produce dogs that are that great. Because I'm like, well, how do you define great? I mean, they're phenomenal dog that hunt. They were great hunting dogs. And I loved them, and there's no way I could find anything really to improve on them. So I just wanted to keep that, and that's why I would go back to older dogs that had those qualities.
And I think something that as I've noticed is that what makes some of those dogs great is that they were with multiple handlers. Somebody would grab them.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, are you heading to that trial? Yep, I'll come get him on a Monday.
Yeah,
throw a couple birds down for him, and then go in with him.
Right.
And I think that those little nuances that we're pulling out, like, kind of shows maybe why, like, I don't know why when I go back to this specific, I breed around this dog, I just get these biddable dogs. And those are the pieces that people may not know or understand, that some of these dogs really did just get handled by somebody. Could just grab them and go run them, and they would just handle for them just like they were their owner.
Right.
And I think that's something that we all look for when we
in an honest dog.
Yeah, and you're looking for that piece to be, hey, I'm gonna go grab the truck. Here, take my GPS and just finish out this field, and I'm gonna, and then you're like, those dogs are great because they'll just go hunt for everybody.
They just go out, point a bird, retrieve it for you, and yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is something specifically when I look back at why I like to go, I'm interested to know is that what I'm looking for? It's a lot of curiosity, I think, in some of the frozen breedings. And that was my response to Fred's question is I just wanted to know what they were. And I think these conversations will help too. So people can go, okay, like I understand now. We use this breed mate program to build pedigrees, and it can show, the counts, like how many times is Axel in a 10 generation pedigree, how many times is Esserchick, how many times is Hustler. And something that we talked about is that today you can look at that count and you can say, okay, Axel's 39 times, and you can do another very similar breeding up close, but Hustler's in there 39 times and Axel's 22 times or something. And you can see the difference in those dogs.
In their personality,
today.
in their trainability.
Yes. And so it's really interesting to hear. So you can kind of see these traits and kind of start picking up like, oh, that's why when I have a little bit more of this, I see this morbidability. I see more of that. And that's why I really like this conversation and start picking up on those little things that you kind of think you're seeing when you're breeding. You're like, am I really seeing it though? So it's really interesting.
Well, and you're an AVD guy.
Yep.
And I wanted to tell you about a litter. It was a breeding that I bred with my female, and this friend of mine, Dick Wilson, he bought several puppies from me. And that's another thing. If people bought puppies, Abe puppies, a lot of them came back and wanted another Abe puppy.
Gotcha.
They hunted them for 10, 12 years or whatever. And in 12 years when that dog died, or 15 years when that dog died, they came back and they wanted me to know if they could get an Abe puppy or something out of that line.
Mm-hmm.
But I bred this litter, and this guy who is a NAVDA guy, he bought this little female, Bailey's little Frida. And he NAVDa'd her, and she had a perfect score. And then I don't know what the proper terminology is for that, but they were invited. All the people that had her puppies had perfect scores, and she was invited back to a big trial with those puppies. I don't know what it's called. So his lineage also went, some of them.
Yeah, we talked about it, that there's dogs that are at our kennel now that we can go back.
Right.
You know, it's probably 6 or 7 generations, and we see these dogs.
So the different venues, they were successful in
other venues.
Something a minute ago you mentioned, and I feel ignorant to have to ask, but you mentioned the NGSP, I think it was, versus the GSPCA. So one of them the American Field version.
NGSPA is the American Field.
And does it still exist? So
yeah.
So there's still the American Field Club,
the NGSPA. That's the national club.
I'm also kind of saying this for people who are going to listen to this at some point, is like, understand the difference. So there's the American Field Registry, that has their own trials, and they're more geared toward bigger running. Wouldn't you say, generally speaking?
Generally speaking, they're more an all age
or shooting dog,
dog frame of mind.
And then they're longer too, right?
They're what?
Are they longer stakes? Like they're
hour stakes.
Yeah. And then the GSPCA, that's the AKC club.
That's the AKC club. And we have always, this is something new. We held the last combined registry, AKC and GSPA trial last year, because AKC will no longer allow you to have a dual registry of the two bodies.
Some of the guys in our NAVDA, like Tim, God has Murphy. Did he run in that trial, or Barry, or
came out here and ran?
Yeah, or Brian Dietz.
I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyway,
sounds familiar, but yeah. But you know, it's too bad. It was kind of a political thing, I feel, and I think it's too bad for the sport.
Yeah. You know, so that's interesting to see. What I'm seeing is that, you know, there was a period of time where it seemed like these things were all very separate. It's like, okay, if you were a NAVDA person, you did NAVDA. If you were an AKC hunt test, or if you were a field trial. And what we're seeing, at least what I'm seeing today, is there's kind of like a coming back together. And I know my friend Donnie Ebersol with Friedelsheim Kennel, he's out east in Pennsylvania. So, and our dogs, gene pools are very similar, but he has a lot of guys being very successful today in also field trialing their dogs, as well as, very successsul in NAVDA. And so those guys I just mentioned, and then there's some guys in the Midwest, Tim Owen and I Larson's group there. They've also been doing a lot of field trialing, as well as NAVDA stuff, and in competitive.
And also our club has NASTRA trials. I don't know if you do NASTRA trials.
Yeah,
there's run some of that. Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway.
A lot of people say that they're kind of just go out, bang, bang, and shoot the most birds sort of thing. But it does show a dog's
Qualities.
and ability. And we have a lot of members who have done both.
Both, yeah.
So you have, I don't know if there's anything in the folders you want to share that to add to the discussion, or is it just stuff you brought to show us later?
Well, I didn't know. I just wasn't sure, what you guys were interested in. I have some
Or
pictures.
all of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have some photographs of Abe or any of these dogs that maybe we don't see normally. I'd love to see them.
Did you bring photos of Kit?
No.
Not even
No.
in that box that you have in the...
Okay.
Well, no, that's all yearbooks.
Yearbooks.
AKC yearbooks.
we have the...
So that's Abe right there, right?
That's Abe.
Yep. So,
This is Jim Reed and Lancer.
okay.
And a write-up that was in our...
So he's the owner. Jim Reed is the owner of Lancer, but he didn't campaign the dog. Dave McGinnis ran it.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
young puppy he might have, but
Puppy and Derby.
he was a little too much for an amateur.
It's another... is that the same? That's another picture of Lancer.
And who's with him there?
Jim Reed.
Okay.
The better picture.
That's an awesome photo. I'd like to get a copy of that. That's
almost the same picture, and it may be the same picture
it might
as that
be,
one.
but at
Look
least
at
that
that.
one's in color.
Yeah.
He was well built.
And then this is
it's powerful.
some clips of the National in Albuquerque. And it was a Johnny Merrill bitch that was first. Do you remember her name? She was second place to Abe.
No, I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I think she was maybe Shiloh.
Man.
One.
I
judged a national there out of Phoenix at the old military base out by where Sandra Deating.
Oh,
Deating
yeah. For
lives. Fort
Yeah.
Huachuca.
So that's Abe.
That's Abe. That's Abe. And he was a funny dog. He had a big, huge spot on one side.
On one side.
And if you took this picture of him on the other side,
didn't
he
think it
looked
was the
like he
same.
was just a tick dog.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say a minute ago. It's like he looked like he just had his body was all just ticked. There's a beautiful picture of him right there. I love that photo right there.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
And this is where he finished his dual championship.
Okay. Is that you?
That's me.
He
Yeah.
is.
Wow.
I was a redhead.
Yeah.
Linda Big Hair, right?
Yeah. An attractive redhead there.
Those were the days, my friend.
Can't believe those guys were saying you shouldn't be out here running dogs.
Oh, well, they just...
Man.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like he could roll out today and
I think he could if he was still here.
yeah.
Look at this version of Linda.
This is when he won the futurity.
She doesn't look a little spunky.
Yeah, then that's
Awesome.
black and
Oh,
white.
I want a picture. I want a copy of that.
Do ya?
Yeah, I want a copy of that. That's an awesome photo.
I'll take a picture of it and send them to you.
Oh, I'd love to.
And I can remember I said we can set them up and I'll take some
you can
pictures.
scan
Look
them
at- look
and
at
do
that.
it. Okay.
Oh, man.
Look at that.
Yeah, let me see.
I want to take a picture of it and send it to
And
somebody
this is
right
his son, Darby O'Gill. He was second place in the futurity that Abe won the all age.
now. This dog is a son of Abe. I was going to ask you a second ago. I mean, Lancer D, obviously, maybe, I don't know, was he the best offspring of Abe? Or, I mean, what about...
Was Abe the best offspring of Lancer D?
Yeah,
Well, that probably would.
maybe. Yeah, sorry about that.
That would probably be subjective.
Yeah.
I know her answer.
Yeah.
I think he was.
Yeah.
Well, they and I don't think they. I couldn't find Lancers. This is Lancer. This is the picture that's. Have you been to the Bird Dog Hall of Fame?
No, but that's the picture.
You need to go.
Yeah.
You need to go to the Bird Dog Hall of Fame. It is really interesting.
You'll find both Kit, her dog, Abe McGinnis. They're all in the Hall of Fame. Yeah, big pictures
amazing.
of them.
What litter, or was there a litter, or what dogs would you say are the top dogs out of Abe?
Well, Abe had rather than putting me on the spot here. Put me on the spot. Where did I put it? Here it is.
Oh, is it a list of his offspring?
Yeah. Okay. Abe was the 1978 winner of the Region 9 Derby Classic, 1978 GSPCA National Futurity, 1980 winner of the NGSPA National All Age, 1980 AKC All Age Field Champion, 1981 his dual champion, 1981 NGPDA, that's the All Breed National, 1981 NGSPA National All Age Champion. Those are all American Field.
Those are
1981, he was the number one all-age dog in the nation. 1982, he was the winner of the GSPCA National All-Age Championship in Albuquerque. 1982, he won the National Chucker Association All-Age Championship. 82, he was the number 2. 1990, and I have no idea where he is now, he was the number 19 all-time Pop Sires, and he had already kind of started to fall at that time. He produced 10 field champions, 1 amateur field champion. And this is old. I don't know. That's the treasure that I lost. I put it where I wouldn't lose it, and now I can't find it. He produced, and it's more than that, 2 dual champions, puppies that had 2 national field championships, puppies that had charity placements. And his by year's evolution was the 1989 Gun Dog of the Year. And the thing about Abe is he kept, the grandkids, the great grandkids like Kit and Lancer. It just kept going down the line, and we kept having national field champions.
Mm-hmm.
Apocalypse von Greif. He was an Abe son. He was a dual champion, a national field champion.
Yeah.
Abe's Honky Lady. She was a field champion. Eden's Carry Me Back. High Abe's Mary Rebecca. Hillhaven's Ready and Able. K-Bar's Little Miss Tabitha. K-Bar's Peach Sonnet. These are all field champions and dual champions. Bruckerheim's Fire Boss, dual champion. 1989 Gun Dog of the Year. Won a national championship, too. KO's Dirty Harry. Dan Hoke had him. KO's Fox. Special Effort. So he had a lot. I can't help but say I think he was By Year's Evolution. And this was before By Year was done when he was young, but he won the National Amateur GSPCA Gun Dog Championship in 85 and 86. He was the number 1 all-age dog of the year in 87. 1990, he was the number 12 all-time hunting dog sire. 1993, field producing sire of the year. Putney, Lucky Putney, he was 1989 National Gun Dog Champion. 3rd in 89, the National Amateur Championship. 1989, number 3 GSPCA Gun Dog of the Year. There's a lot of them, and I'm completely talking all the time.
No.
We're listening.
No, we're
As
listening.
you see, I loved Abe.
I was looking back at By Year's Evolution's pedigree to kind of and he's a grandson of Abe. Yep. And I was also looking to see if he was on the top side, but Lancer's on the top side.
Well,
but look here, when I'm looking at
Abe
Abe or not, I'm looking at Jack's pedigree here, and he was his sire and dam were half sister, half brother.
right.
They had the same mother,
Right.
which goes back to Blick, Shiloh,
Mhm.
and then Blick, but then Airlocker Abe's on the bottom side down,
Right.
as a sire of the dam.
Right.
Yeah, awesome.
And this dog,
That dog, yeah. Who owned this dog? Nika Meister.
Raphael Bayer. Remember him, Gary?
yeah, kind of.
And we had a guy named C.D. Mine who had show champions.
Huh?
And this
Oh, I
was
remember that kennel name too.
This was his grandson.
Okay.
And
Whose grandson? CD.
CD's grandson, this Raphael Bayer, who owned this dog. And then they bred that dog. Okay. Bred Abe to her. And then got this. This is Raphael's dog.
Okay.
And then bred to Ace and got Jack.
So when you say, I say buyers, but it's, what'd you call it?
Raphael Bayer is
Bayer.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that
how he spelled his name?
Okay.
Or how he pronounced his name.
Okay. And was
So
he from
I
this?
don't-
Was he from this region here?
He lived here for a while.
Mm-hmm.
He worked for the railroad.
Okay.
And he trained with Dave McGinnis. He went with Dave several times when we went to field trials with him. I think he might have even gone to the trials in New Mexico and Arizona in '82 with Dave and Sue.
So he made a mark.
He made a mark.
Yeah, I
you
mean-
don't really hear from him, but he made a mark with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. That's why I was looking at these pedigrees when you were reading that list.
I mean,
It's an impressive list. Can I have a copy of that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to have that. Just as a reference.
I have a copy of that. I have a copy of.
And so, also some of these photos that I mentioned, like this one, and some of those of you with Abe. Can you send copies or scan those and send them to me?
Yeah, and
please?
you can have a copy. And I better make Gary a copy too of of Kit's nomination.
Oh yeah.
This is what we submitted. Carolyn and I worked on this.
For the
we
Hall of
pulled
Fame.
up a lot of the stuff from when she went into the Hall of Fame, the GSPCA,
Right.
and had other stuff, new stuff that we added to it. This was her most recent one.
So Gary, she's in the Hall of Fame. Are you also?
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
Not yet. They haven't thought I was that great. So
Okay.
I probably made too many enemies over the years, judging as much as I did. And no, I have not made it.
So, I'll make Gary one of these, but you can have this one.
Okay.
And you could have these. These are just, I went online and this is not a true, do you have Lancer's pedigree?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
This is what is online for the NGSPA. This is not really Lancer's. This is his pedigree, but wasn't for Lancer. It was another dog that bred to Abe.
Okay.
And I just took the top half of it, which was Lancer's pedigree.
Okay.
So.
Awesome.
Because I couldn't find one. You think you could find these things, but this is a copy of what's posted for Abe
on the website.
On the website, and then do you have his pedigree?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go. That's awesome. Well, I don't know. What do you think? We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Kind of like a good bird dog. We've hit the objectives, right?
Yeah. Yep. For sure.
Yeah. We're still running strong. I mean, we could.
One question maybe you guys know, just because we were talking about on the drive. We had quite the drive over and back yesterday. So it's
8 hours. Yeah. That I had to entertain him for 8 hours. It was.
Was Axel von Wasserschlag ever in the United States, or was he always in Germany? Do you know?
I think he was.
I thought he was over here.
Yeah,
that's what we thought too. We've heard both, and so
I couldn't.
We're running out of people that would know.
I can't tell you for sure, but I think he was here.
That's what I wondered,
On the
is
coast.
if he was brought over here at least for a little while to be bred to.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the lines I heard
I don't
that.
know if Bob Holcomb brought him over for a while to breed.
Yeah,
or
I would
what.
think maybe it would have
Maybe
been
we can find out.
Bob.
Maybe Karen can tell us.
She might know.
She would know.
She is a wealth of information.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her and I've never met her, but I'm looking forward to meeting her.
You're going to.
Yeah. Yep.
No,
We're going to see her tonight.
She knows a lot.
She knows a lot, and she's very friendly, very outgoing.
Mm-hmm.
She probably talks too much like me.
You didn't talk too much.
I used to be really quiet.
Well,
Then you got into dogs?
And then I got into dogs. Abe gave me my self-confidence.
Well,
He did.
you did. Well, I mean, what an awesome story.
You can
Both of
tell.
you.
You can tell that I don't deal much with keeping things, remembering things.
Carolyn was his wife.
My wife was good at it,
Yeah.
but I was never good at keeping stories. Or hell, I don't remember much in 60 years of this now.
Yeah.
You know, so.
But you were really close with the McGinnises, right?
Oh, they were probably Carolyn and my probably best friends we ever had.
You
It
guys
was
would
very
take care
sad
of their
with
kids when
Yeah.
they were.
They grew up with
Gone
our
to
kids,
nationals.
and so we were very, very close. Yeah,
Well,
and I ran a lot of. And going back, we were talking about amateurs stakes thing. I used to run a lot of Dave's dogs in
the
amateur
Oh, you
stakes.
you handled for his.
I handled a lot of his dogs,
Yeah.
amateur stakes. Finished some.
Gotcha. Awesome.
So, yeah, that was something we was talking about a while ago. I wanted to say.
Yeah.
It is. You know, of course, I trained with him a lot too. So I knew the dogs
Yeah.
pretty much.
And his son, Mike, you're friends with.
Yeah.
Who,
Right.
is
His
over
son
in-
and my son. And I guess it was
My
Jerry,
son.
your
Jerry-
son too.
Jerry
they all grew up
trained
together
with
as
him. My
little
son
kids
Jerry trained with him
Yeah.
after
playing
Dave
in the
died.
snow while we were running dogs, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's just, it was a whole family grew up over the years.
And
Excellent.
Larry and June McConnell, they were Brittany people, then Pointer people. I don't know if you know them, but
Mm-mm.
he had
They were-
national field champions in Brittany's and Pointers, and
They trained
passed
with
away
us
a
a
year
lot.
ago.
They were
Yeah.
close too, you know, so it
Yeah.
didn't make any difference what breed we had. We all trained together.
Yeah.
Worked with each other's
Yeah.
dogs and helped each other.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Well, I appreciate sitting down and talking to us.
Oh, yeah. Thank you so much.